girls I meet are divided into those who have intellectual interests, like sensitive men, but are very woke, and the less woke who are not very intellectual, who seem to be consumerists and prefer traditional gender roles. As a young man, how can I date today? Well, that's a really bleak binary picture that you have painted, and I don't envy anyone being young and entering the dating market right now. I guess I'm a little devastated about that description. I know that there are people young women who are both intellectual and not woke, but I don't know where they hang out particularly. They used to hang out in our classrooms, but those don't exist anymore.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, we even know that many of the young women who were in our classrooms, continue into the world. Some of them remain single and some of them are not. But I think the thing is, they suggest a fact, which is many, many people are finding something very troubling in the mating and dating market. And my recommendation would be you figure out the mechanism you're using to figure out who to date is directing you to people who fall into one of two categories that you don't resonate with. The key thing.
So how to figure out how to define and maybe create that third, fourth, fifth, whatever it is, category that will have people in it who you're more interested in.
Yes. Where would those people tend? I mean, if they are decrying the lack of men who fit with their model.
Yeah, this is now a couple of years old, but we certainly would hear from students of both sexes, straight students of both sexes, that they were having a very hard time finding people with whom they were interested in having a relationship.
Yep.
And for the most part, this wasn't about their standards being ridiculous, right?
No, I think in large measure it has to do with almost everybody below a certain age having been sold a false bill of goods about what is valuable, and that in some sense you're looking for the people who know that the description of what they're supposed to be pursuing is hollow and largely driven by people who want to sell you something rather than people who are actually looking out for your interests. So my recommendation would be figure out how to escape that. You're looking for oddballs. That could be a very rewarding relationship or search for a relationship. And when you find the right person.
Where do you find the oddballs? Like what? It depends on what kind of oddballs you want. One of my first guesses would be look for people who are doing something physical, backpacking clubs or bicycling or, sports teams, summer leagues, pickup games of something that are co-ed, ultimate frisbee being particularly responsive to co-ed sport. Just because, as I've said many, many times, and you have said as well, engaging with the world physically makes it really so much harder to accept a lot of the woke garbage that requires that you sort of have no feedback from the world. And physical engagement with the world gives you that feedback, and so you hone your insight. And I think, this is now hypothesis, but given that I've seen so few people who are rock climbers or carpenters or otherwise engaging the world in a real way, who are also really buying into the woke stuff, I think that it basically hones your brain such that it's harder for you to accept the totally socially created conclusions that intersectional bullshit provides. What?
I'm having the thought of a shirt for the postmodern rock climbing club, in which the shirt depicts a cliff. Rising above the cliff is the sound of somebody falling. Because that's what would happen in postmodern rock climbing.
Yeah. It could just even be postmodern rock climbing club and could have the coyote suspended above cliff, not recognizing gravity yet. But,
yes. That too. There you go.
That's the point. That the idea that the rules of physics don't apply to you until you recognize that they're there is super amusing when it's a cartoon coyote, but not so amusing when you're actually contending with these people over issues of whether or not to defund the police, for instance.
I thought that cartoon was about market failure as depicted through the Acme Corporation.
I think they were doing pretty well for themselves, weren't they?
I guess they were.
Yeah, Instahole.
Yeah. All right. Well, I would actually suggest, though, this is just a proof of concept, but you say that you are encountering girls. I would suggest you start searching for women. and you are finding women who have intellectual interests. They like sensitive men. That's a little suspect. Doggy. And they're very woke. Well, here's the thing. Where would you find intellectual women who have no patience for woke? I would say the rationalist community would be one place you would find such people. Now, those people are certainly quirky, but they tend to be quirky in a kind of delightful way. So if that's the dynamic you're trying to break, seek out a community where that formulation doesn't make sense.
Okay.
I mean, right?
It seems to me that maybe it's not all that numerous.
Well,
and my guess would also be that the sex ratio is rather skewed in the direction that this person writing in would not prefer. But those are the stereotypes I hold in my head.
That's true, but it's also like it's a community nested within some other communities, right? And so anyway, all I'm saying, it was just a proof of concept, which is there's a place in which that formulation wouldn't add up.
Yep.
So it's also
there will be others.
And
yes.
And I'm not suggesting you take up with the rationalist community cynically. It's also an interesting community. I think there are some ways in which there are some things that I don't think they get as well as they might, but we all don't get something as well as we might, and it would be an interesting place to spend time.